On September 11th of 2001, the World Trade Center's Twin Towers in New York City were struck down after terrorists smashed airplanes into them. A total of 2,996 people died in plane attacks on the towers, on the Pentagon, and in a failed attack in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. In Bucks County, Pennsylvania, not far from New York, nor Washington, D.C., and just on the other end of the state from the open field where passengers crash-landed a hijacked plane to foil the terrorist plot, a movie began filming the very next day. M. Night Shyamalan, hot after the success of The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, was leading a cast that included Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix, with an entire rattled film crew behind him. The movie they were shooting was Signs, an alien invasion story with a moral twist. It was all about faith. Mel Gibson plays the main character, Graham Hess, a reverend who's lost his faith after his wife, Colleen, died in a horrific accident. His younger brother, Merrill, played by Joaquin Phoenix, is a man's man, but has a childlike innocence with faith that's just as quiet as it is strong. He's a record-breaking Little League baseball player, famous for his amazing hits, but also notorious for always swinging, even when told not to. In his own words,
"Felt wrong not to swing."
The children, Morgan and Bo, are played by Rory Culkin and Abigail Breslin, respectively. They both have their own quirks. Morgan is a bookish asthma patient, and Bo refuses to ever finish a glass of water, claiming it suddenly tastes weird or has dust in it. Morgan and Bo also seem to be taking their mother's death with more acceptance than Graham is. Crop circles begin to appear on the family's farm. Though Graham dismisses them as pranks pulled by a gang of local ruffians, similar circles begin appearing around the globe. Overnight, the possibility of aliens goes from fantasy to an ever-creeping reality. So, how is this movie supposed to teach us about faith? Just before I jump into that, please give me 20 seconds to let you know that Shyamalan is a completely independent channel with no generative AI being used to make my videos. I'm also just barely getting off the ground here. If you like this video, if you're seeing it at all because YouTube apparently hates long form, please subscribe and help me make $1 million on Coffee. Without further ado, this movie does an excellent job of keeping us aware of its value on faith, even as the alien invasion unfolds. Moreover, it ties them together, marrying both conflicts into one. It goes so far as to tie the fear of aliens to the character foil between Graham and Merrill. See, both men are strong, devoted, and brave. What separates them is Graham's wounded, weary outlook after his wife's death, and Merrill's seemingly naive optimism. When Graham reveals his fear, that he no longer believes in God, Merrill is able to counter with a party story when he narrowly avoided sucking in a girl's vomit. This sequence is layered with narrative irony. The conversation begins with Graham trying to comfort Merrill. He tells him that there's people who think it's all just luck, subtly describing himself, and then those who see God's miracles in everything, who believe that there are no coincidences. Merrill's story only comes up because she's trying to comfort Graham in return. It's a delicate balance between the two. It's best described as symbiotic, not in the Spider-Man and Venom parasitic definition, but in the actual definition. Graham and Merrill are brothers. They care deeply for one another and can't stand seeing the other in pain. They both hold the power to ease one another. It's not solely a protector dynamic like a father and his children, even if Merrill's innocence may make it appear as such when he seeks comfort. It's brotherhood. It's love. They both carry the wisdom that the other needs. This is no coincidence. The movie makes it clear. They're a gift from God to one another, and it really drives home the point that everything happens for a reason. Graham is in despair because his wife, Colleen, died horrifically. Her dying word repeats of advice, pleas for Graham to speak to his family. Among these bits of advice,
"Tell Merrill to swing away."
When Graham confesses this to Merrill, he initially states that he believes Colleen was just confused in her dying mind and remembering a game that Merrill once played. What we see at the end is that this was the advice that brought everything together to save the family. The alien, or as some say, demon, that Graham injured early in the film arrives. It nabs Morgan, and Graham remembers the scene of his wife's death and all of her advice. What we are shown is her advice playing out in real time, but in reverse order. The last thing Graham's wife said was, tells Merrill, who was ready to go mano a mano with the demon, to swing away. Merrill takes a step back, realizing what this means. He grabs the bat. The second last bit of advice was,
Tell Graham. I'm here. Tell him. See.
Graham sees Merrill's old bat on the wall. He remembers the advice. It was meant for this moment. The advice before that was,
Tell Bo to listen to her brother.
Earlier in the film, when they're debating whether to stay in the farmhouse or head for the lake, Morgan reasons that the aliens avoided water. There were reports of them staying away from lakes. Graham has just come home from the home of Ray Reddy, the driver who accidentally killed his wife, fleeing for the lake. Beyond that, when Graham entered Ray's home, he saw the claws of a demon and in panic chopped a few fingers off. Knowing that these things are real and that they may be hateful of water, Graham floats the idea of moving the family to the lake until the invasion subsides, so he calls for a vote. Graham himself votes for the lake. Merrill votes home. Bo votes lake. Morgan votes home. And Bo, after hearing him out, defers to Morgan. She changes her vote to stay at home. That's her listening to her brother in a very direct and textual way. The result is that they stayed home. If they'd gone to the lake and then come back, they would have walked straight into the same wounded demon waiting inside, but without the tactical advantages of the living room. The water glasses, the bat, Merrill's positioning. Colleen's prophecy is fulfilled not just in the fight, but in the decisions that led them into that fight on their own ground. Now to the very first bit of advice.
Tell Harmon to play games. It's okay to be silly. I will.
We actually get a hint of this earlier in the movie, when Graham tells the family dog, incessantly barking,
Isabel, you're going to feel very silly when this turns out to be all just make-believe.
The line is about dismissing instinct and belief in favor of control. But Isabel isn't being silly. She's right. She senses the intruders before anyone else admits they're real. The tragedy is that she's silenced, killed by the demons, before her silliness can be validated. Now look at Morgan. He's the first one to wear a tinfoil hat. He studies the books, and he insists that aliens are real. He gets questioned by Graham, who's mainly hoping that it's all just paranoia. In Graham's eyes, Morgan is being silly. But his silliness is exactly what the prophecy blesses. He's right, just like Isabel was. He collects information that helps the family respond intelligently. He's the one who insists on staying home, which keeps him where the weapons are. And in a final scene, his asthma, if you're feeling artsy, a physical form of silliness and that it cripples basic human function, saves his life. So the prophecy loops backward across the film. Morgan embodies the intellectual version of silliness in his childish obsession with aliens. When Graham's wife says, tell Morgan it's okay to be silly, it's a preemptive correction to Graham's mistakes. And what does this all lead to? Merrill kicks demon ass. The water left by Bo helps him kill it. Morgan, whose lungs were closed due to his asthma, was unable to inhale the poison of the alien. The EpiPen Graham had been seeking last night comes into play now. The delay allowed for Morgan to not be poisoned. Thus, Morgan is saved. The family remains as whole as they can. Colleen's death was earth-shattering, but it's the only reason everyone else survived. Graham has found his faith again and returns to being a reverend. All of this is to show that faith makes the world go round. Shyamalan didn't make any changes to the script because of 9/11, other than a quick snapshot of the Twin Towers, which he removed out of respect for the victims. And I really think Shyamalan was born to make this movie. There's a scene where Graham is worried that Morgan is going to die. Defeated, Graham whispers to God,
I hate you. I hate you.
It's reminiscent of Shyamalan's first film, Praying with Anger, which ends with his protagonist finding that his anger is the only thing that can move him to pray. What follows is the next morning, when the invading forces have retreated. Meryl tells Graham,
There's things I can take, and a couple things I can't. One of them I can't take is from my older brother, who's everything I want to be. Starts losing faith in things. I saw your eyes last night. I don't want to ever see your eyes like that again. Okay? I'm serious.
And when the family goes upstairs, the demon Graham wounded earlier arrives. The reasoning for Colleen's tragic death, which Graham had been struggling to understand for months, is shown here. Signs was released in August of 2002, a month before the first anniversary of 9/11. And along with Spider-Man, that same year, it's the kind of movie America needed. Though it doesn't seem to get as much attention these days, despite being the 7th highest grossing movie in 2002 with $408 million earned at the box office against a $72 million budget. It's a real shame because it's a very deep, funny movie made by people who actually understand faith. It's a rare gem. Maybe just a story, but it makes a very strong statement about faith and God's mysterious ways. Can't help but feel good after watching it, and it instantly made its way into my favorites list. I watched it again to make this video, and even after all this time, I'm still moved by it. So the next time something bad happens to you, think about the big picture. Maybe something good will come of it. In the Bible, Paul wrote in verse 28 of its 8th chapter, the epistle to the Romans, that God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. In the Quran, God said in verse 216 of the 2nd chapter, the Hyper, fighting is prescribed for you, though it may be hateful to you. Perhaps you hate a thing and it is good for you, or you love a thing and it is bad for you. And God knows while you know not. If you survived this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and help me make $1 million on coffee.
Goodbye.